Today on the Life Science Success Podcast, I'm pleased to be joined by Ed Wiley. Ed is a high visibility senior executive with over 20 years of building, leading, and advising world-class machine learning, AI, and data science teams at companies at stages from startup to Fortune 50. An active member in the AI and data science communities, Ed regularly presents at national and international conferences and workshops and has been named a top big data pro to follow on Twitter. Welcome, Ed.
Thank you, Don. Pleased to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much. So can you tell listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure thing. I am pretty much a career machine learning guy. I did my graduate work thinking I'd go into academia a couple of decades and change ago. During that time, I was at Stanford, and I happened to study in some classes with some of the pioneers of machine learning. So that was really my first introduction to it. I left that, went to McKinsey to find out how the real world works for 3 or 4 years, and then came back and chaired a doctoral program at the University of Colorado. So in that first, I did that for probably the better part of a decade. So I've been in the research area, been in the teaching area, and then the real life area with consulting, and seen it from a bunch of different angles. So since I left the university, for me, I love teaching and I love advising doctoral students. But the consulting became a little bit more fun than the research. So I went out and started doing more hands-on projects. So I built some of the first big data and data science machine learning teams at companies like Sears, Kmart, Seagate, worked with the federal government for several years through a software company called PenLink, and since have worked with several startups and nonprofits. So I've seen it in a lot of different areas. I love it. I love what machine learning can do. I also am a realist in trying to help people understand while I'm evangelizing, also saying, and you can't do everything, and it's not going to take over the world anytime soon. So it's a topic that's really close to my heart because it hits different parts of math, of psychology, of automation that really, those areas are pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, so the singularity, I think, scares most of us. So this idea that the machines are going to take over at least scares most of us. But, I guess the one thing that really is a curiosity of mine is, in terms of all of the fields that you could have chosen, why at your point of starting out, did you want to choose, artificial intelligence and machine learning?
Great question. And in fact, I didn't really know that I was choosing it at the time. I was a math guy. I did a math undergrad, a couple of masters in the area, and that was my direction. I didn't know where I was going to go in that area, but I gradually found out that I liked more applied areas. So things like optimization and operations research as an undergrad gave me insights into, the sort of things that we're talking about in class are not that far from application to real life work. And then when I found statistics, I just love dealing with uncertainty. Things like variability and uncertainty quantification, those were just really interesting to me. I had an intellectual hook around risk. I wanted to understand risk, and I wanted to be able to model risk. And at the time, there were great models for modeling risk as long as you made some pretty big assumptions. Now we have computing power that substitutes for the need for those assumptions and those parametric models, and the world is open. So it is kind of, I'd love to say, when I was 12 years old, I saw Terminator and I knew I wanted to fight that or be in that world. It was nothing like that. It was more, hey, as this world started to evolve and computing power got so cheap, the possibilities just exploded, and my interest in applying those possibilities in a variety of different areas exploded as well.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing to me to always hear kind of the pathway that people took, because I know my journey through my time at the university was the same exact way. It was very not very well planned out, and it was more or less, hey, this seems interesting, I'm going to go this direction, and then later on maybe a different direction, which as we all learned was a very expensive choice to make.
Indeed, in terms of not only money but time and energy. So, but I am a diehard generalist in that I love to look at problems across a variety of domains rather than go really, really deep into a single domain. So that's probably why I didn't end up taking the PhD and just going straight into research right from there. There are just too many interesting problems out there to take a look at.
Yeah, it was funny. Somebody told me early on in my in my college career that if you really like putting your hands on things, the last thing you want is a very advanced degree, because you won't get to touch many things. You'll be much more conceptual, and yet I still found myself going after my PhD. So
right.
So, what sort of things do you typically get involved in life sciences? I mean, the things that I've seen are, very advanced algorithms around the things that people are studying. And so, it might be kind of interesting to start there.
Sure. For me, I've had several different experiences that touch different areas of life science. So one of my most prominent experiences where machine learning really was playing a big role was with a biotech. So I served as CTO for Inveda Biosciences, which just yesterday announced a Series A, $51 million Series A led by Lux. So pretty exciting stuff there. The idea is, how do you take the instincts that drive drug researchers and always have around traditional models, and how do you scale those? How do you bring those in mass to cover a wider domain and a wider topographical area in drug discovery? And so that's machine learning is a great area for that, because there's so much the information that is out there is far surpasses the cognitive complexity that I can handle, that most people can handle, but algorithms are made for that. So that's one area that I think is just going to explode, and it's really exciting to see the successes of my colleagues in that particular company. Less on the bench science side and more on in healthcare. I've done a couple of different things. I was VP of machine learning, built a machine learning group at Neurax, which is a Series D startup, digital telehealth that focuses on women's health and sensitive health issues. And there we were trying to understand whether we could adopt aspects of asynchronous service that would mimic the traditional medical model. So if I have, for example, that might be really advantageous. If I have a sensitive health condition, let's say I have an STD, I think I do, I probably need medical assistance. It's not easy for me to go to my doctor and say, hey, this is a problem that I have right now. What if we had a channel for providing care to people with those situations that did not require them to actually go in person? There are also, I think the count was something around 19 million women in the United States live in contraception deserts, places where there's no medical provider close who can provide birth control. And so that's another area. If you have to travel hours and hours in order to get medical care, that doesn't make it very realistic. Your standard of care there is going to go lower. How might we capitalize on digital technologies, machine learning, automation, to provide a way of giving care to people who are in those needs, in those areas of need? So that was pretty interesting too. And now I'm in kind of the healthcare and education area. I'm an advisor and acting chief data officer for Maro, which is a company that looks at helping parents teach health and sensitive topics to their young children. So it's an app that's helping deliver healthcare and working with providers to figure out ways of helping parents be better parents in the healthcare realm. Areas that, if you're a first-time parent, a question gets asked to you by a kid, you don't have any control over what that question is. I mean, that kid's asked anything. And generally, if you don't know the answer, it'd be nice to have a trusted source of advice for that. And that's what Maro tries to do. That's what our aspiration is there. So there are several different areas that are really exciting in healthcare. It's been something that's close to my heart as well. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I actually found out I was type 1 diabetic during my first year of doctoral work at Stanford. And I thought, hey, I just can't hack doctoral work. It's just, I'm sick. I just can't do it. Well, it turns out there was a reason for that. But ever since then, healthcare has taken on a different meaning for me. So it makes sense for my interests in machine learning to intersect with those of life sciences and healthcare, because that's something that's very germane to me as a person.
Yeah, it's funny because I was just having a conversation earlier today with somebody about the continuous glucose monitoring, the little sensor that you can wear on your arm now. Okay, so you have one. And my wife is a type 1 diabetic, but she still uses the strips. And so, so I was just, telling him that my mental reference is kind of watching my wife prick her finger and kind of go through that. And all I keep thinking is that if I had type 1 diabetes, the first thing I would want is a continuous monitor, because I'd want to really see exactly where things, are contributing to things going wrong. And so just like you, I'm a more data driven person. And I would, really probably like that idea of, being able to see and understand a little bit more about my health. And hey, if machine learning could help me with that, I mean, why not? Right. So, tell me what am I doing that's causing this, continuous glucose spike, or, for me to not feel right.
Exactly. And in fact, diabetes, while I wouldn't ever wish it on anybody, it does provide me a nice framework for experimentation and seeing, the tracking data and generating volumes of data. The CGMs, the continuous glucose monitors, have changed the standard of care, and now they are working with the insulin pumps. That's the other part of my system of care. And within the communication from the CGM to the pump, and then the decisions the pump makes, there's a component of machine learning in there that adjusts to different aspects of your metabolism and different aspects of your day-to-day life to best predict when you are going to run into problems, when you might need to either increase insulin or give yourself, take some food. It's just so different than it was 25 years ago when I was first diagnosed. In fact, it was a data-driven group who kind of got tired of not being able to have the solutions to this closed loop of a sensor and insulin delivery. They started an open source project that is now the foundation of a lot of great work, just because they wanted to build this for themselves and for their kids. So there are good things out there in diabetes world that are being driven by data-driven people in the areas of machine learning.
Yeah, so I mean, it's phenomenal to hear, and I certainly think that in the areas of care, healthcare providers as a whole, I mean, there are so many things that are out there anymore. Having a way to quickly sift through those as a human is just a great thing that I feel like machine learning in general is providing to everybody everywhere.
Yeah, it's absolutely the case. Now, it is really finally fulfilling some of the promise and extremely high expectations that have been around for quite some time.
Yeah, and even with the boundaries of data protection and things like that, I mean, as well, I'm amazed that there are all these people that can kind of walk that walk. And I know I've interviewed a few of them on this podcast where there are some of them that are predicting best drugs to apply for breast cancer, and others are kind of looking at patients that are not taking medicine, and again, it's just amazing to hear some of the work that you're doing in the space as well.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about some of your ventures outside of life sciences?
Sure. So I am having built practices for machine learning. That's really what I enjoy doing now. I certainly enjoy getting my hands dirty with the data, and I will never be fully removed from that. But my days as a production quality coder in machine learning are well past. So no one wants me writing any code that anything of any consequence is going to be depending on. So I'm more of an organizational guy right now. In my consulting, I work with companies of all sizes, bringing machine learning and data science to the company in a systematic way. We focus on the people, the processes, and the platforms that together make up a great world-class data science or machine learning function. So I've done this myself, and I remember back in 2013 when I was charged with building the first big data analytics group at Seagate, the disk drive company. I would have loved a manual on how to do that and how it was different from building a regular tech team in IT. No manual exists. So I've over time, through many scars, bruises, some successes, have developed some insights that I'm now trying to help others capitalize on to really formalize the data science function and the machine learning function, AI function, if you will, within different organizations. So that's what takes the lion's share of my time. I also do a lot of tech advising with different startups, and have started to advise and get interested in applications of blockchain that may be relevant to our future through Web 3.0.
Yeah, it's excellent. So can you maybe just define a little bit of what blockchain is, because that might be something new for a lot of our listeners?
Sure. What blockchain does is it provides a decentralized way of taking care of some of the issues that required a trusted third party in the past. So in the past, you have something like a bank or an authority that you go to who is the middle person in transactions. With the blockchain, every record of everything that ever takes place, every agreement that's ever made, every contract that's ever agreed to, is in multiple copies across multiple machines across the world. So there is no need for this middle person to be the intermediary and actually prove the transaction and the validity of a transaction. It's done there in a decentralized manner and in an automatic manner. So you have it opens up a variety of different opportunities. So some of the coolest ones are in finance, which of course is not in life sciences, but it just like the internet took 20 years for us to figure out all the great ways to use the internet, it's going to be 20, 30 years before we figure out all the great ways that blockchain and Web 3.0 can change the world for us. You now have decentralized autonomous organizations that there is no corporate headquarters, but they're acting as a trading platform for cryptocurrencies, some for stocks, some for all kinds of different financial instruments. You can get loans, you can do things on margin, all kinds of different financial things that typically were only available if you were an accredited investor in the United States, or which means you have tremendous resources to start. So the exciting thing is the democratization of a lot of what was never accessible to say a kid who grew up in the middle of Nebraska on a farm, which was me. I have no idea about any of this stuff. If I was there now, I could take part in some of the same financial instruments that venture capitalists, that hedge funds, that advanced investors have been using for years. So there are implications in governance. There are implications in the transfer of wealth and creation of new generational wealth among people who've not had that. That are just really exciting.
Yeah, given all of the things that could be taken from you, having that intermediary part, buttoned up, definitely is an area that sounds exciting even for me as well. So I saw a recent post that you posted on Twitter that you're included in Analytica, Who's Who in Data Science. So given your insights in the space, can you give us any sort of thoughts around where you think the future goes with machine learning and artificial intelligence?
Sure. First of all, the Analytica honor was really great. It was neat to be featured with colleagues in that report. For the future, there are really exciting things happening. Some of the biggest, most interesting technological areas of those at the top in my interest is some of the transformer-based language models that are out there. We have through models called GPT and through another one called BERT. These models can generate language based on a training set. They're pre-trained based on, in some cases, majorities of the internet. So these are models that you and I can't mess with at home. But using those pre-trained models, I can ask a question to the model, and the model will generate an answer that almost, and it's debatable here, almost passes the Turing test, which is this famous long-standing test of whether an AI is truly truly intelligent by if you can have a conversation with it and the person on the other end doesn't know that they're having conversation with anything but a human. So what will be interesting is how this is used. I could, generating people are asking if there are going to be novels anymore. Will writers need to write encyclopedia entries? Will newspaper articles need to be written? Why don't they just be written by this thing? I think that takes it well beyond what is likely to happen anytime soon. But the opportunity is fantastic. I was working with the Anti-Defamation League actually to review their work on online hate speech detection. And they're using those transformer models to try to get at this idea of what is hate speech. That's a really complex issue, and categorizing a lot of humans don't know they're seeing hate speech because of coded interactions and insider language, but yet they're training computers to and language models to identify this. So it's just, the breadth of applications here are just mind-blowing. So that is one area. Another area is around the cultural contexts of machine learning and AI. AI ethics are finally getting a good amount of press and well-deserved press. We want to hear, we want to be thinking we've got massively powerful tools here at our disposal. They're in computer code. They're not like hardware tools. They're not like a nuclear weapon, but they can be, very dangerous if used in the wrong contexts. So we should be thinking about, well, what are the right uses? How can we make sure that we understand unintended consequences of AI and machine learning? So that is a second area that I think is going to be massive in the future. And then the third is, the United States is in good shape with AI. China's got solid AI. Other countries are making countrywide investments in AI, but you still have places across the world that could benefit from the advances that don't have access to the education or the technology yet. And so democratization of AI would suggest that, look, we've got to get this into places that are remote, places in Africa, let's say sub-Saharan Africa. That how can we train people in this new field that has so many possibilities? And so that's another area I think that a lot of attention is going to be paid to.
Yeah, I mean, I look forward to the I mean, so if you look at kind of the drug life cycle as an example, today there are good in silico models around what should happen in the development, but I mean, the further up and the quicker that you could fail early, the better, right? I mean, maybe we're not running all these studies to try and figure out whether a drug will work. Maybe we could know based a bit more on the reality and in the science in machine learning and artificial intelligence. And so yeah, I think it's really important for the future kind of as a whole, but a lot of the things that you talk about with regards to writing stories, I know I've read at least one story that's used a similar model myself, and it's amazing to know that a computer fully generated this article as well. It was one surprise to me. I also think about the human side of things and how we at times pivot kind of randomly, and I would hope that that side of at least the creative arts for story writing and things like that continue, because I think it's important kind of for us to continue to see great things like Harry Potter. My kids loved all of those stories, and what if we didn't have that story? So it'd be kind of a shame.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There are these areas of I don't think AI does a fantastic job in generating truly creative, creative as we as humans might be endeared to. That sort of content. Some of the things that come out of those language models can be pretty creative, but they're not in the same way as something these classics. I'm a Star Wars guy. No, I will go to my grave saying that no computer model will have ever been able to write at least the first 4, 5, and 6, the first 3 that I saw.
Right, exactly.
Maybe some of the later ones, but.
So there are three questions that I like to ask every guest. What inspires you?
Right now, what inspires me is my family. So I am coming back from a week in rural Tennessee, where my father, a lifelong educator, is an elementary principal, 76 years old, shortly before the pandemic, moved from Lincoln, Nebraska to rural Tennessee, bought 210 acres, and now has about 40 head of cattle and a bunch of chickens. And so why that's inspiring is, first of all, it's keeping him young, but also what a crazy idea. This is a moonshot for him. It's something absolutely new, but he's doing it and he's nailing it. He's doing a great job. So that's inspiring to me. I like the idea of new challenges, and this was one from my dad that I sure didn't see coming, but I'm sure glad he took it.
It's excellent. And it's always funny to me, and I do it too, whenever I see educators, later on in life, just you walk with them just for a minute and you constantly hear, hello, Mr. Wiley. Hi, Mr. Wiley. How are you? it's because everybody knows them and grew up with them. And it's just an amazing thing to know kind of the influence that they had. And now, keeping your dad young is important as well.
Indeed.
What concerns you?
We're the sign of the times. The pandemic affected everybody. Doesn't even need to be said. But we had it also generated or initiated what is probably history's biggest experiment in recent times on work contexts. And so what worries me is, now that there's a push to get back and return, are we going to fully return? I hope we don't lose a lot of the lessons that that have improved our lives and have the potential to improve our lives and our work and life relationships that we learned through the pandemic. So that's something that I'm keeping an eye on. I have a book on bringing machine learning to the enterprise that's coming out in Q3. It would have come out before, but I just wrote a new chapter on doing data science in a remote first world. Now that some of the benefits of doing, having a remote workforce have become more obvious, and also some of the perceived limitations didn't turn out to be that big a deal. So I'm hoping that there will be widespread change in the way we think about resource allocation in organizations to support workforces that are partially remote, more flexible, possibly fully remote, not necessarily tied to a specific geographical place.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I read that Apple was trying to get people to come back more frequently as well, and then there was a big push inside that the people that are there are saying no, they didn't want to return at the same rate that the leadership at Apple wanted them to return. So I was good for them. I mean, it'll be great to get more flexibility, I think, in the future, especially if you've proven that it works. Why not continue, right?
Right. I really believe that. Let's capitalize on the innovation that was forced on us.
Right. What excites you?
Well, I mentioned the blockchain, and so I'm really excited about the possibilities of decentralization. There are questions. Some of the things around blockchain that get a lot of pushback from well-meaning people who might not understand the full ramifications of things. There are questions about energy consumption. There are questions about whether regulation is needed, things like that. I'm very excited about the possibilities of the future, and in fact, I'm advising a project that is on Solana, a new blockchain, kind of a high performance blockchain alternative to Bitcoin and Ethereum, that is that has such exciting potential. And one of the most fun things about this, you can already see I'm already getting excited about it. The Telegram and Discord groups for Solana, for example, or any one of these, they're just so supportive. People really are excited about, hey, I could be part of this new movement, this new technological revolution. And I remember what it was like in the mid 90s, being in the Bay Area and seeing the .com era rise and all the innovation, all the excitement, and work's never going to be the same. And of course, a lot of that ended up being overblown. But once we pulled back, then we realized the internet, pretty good thing, pretty valuable thing. I think blockchain as a real opportunity to bring similar levels of benefit across the breadth of technology. So that's what gets me excited at night.
Yeah, it's interesting because as I was researching for the podcast here, right? I mean, I did some different lookups on Solana. It looked to me like they were mentioned in different media bits recently. They were there's a lot going on around this one company. So congratulations on your involvement there and the good work that they're doing as well.
Yeah, thanks. It's an exciting group. I in my Nurex time and I was officing at a place in Boulder, a workspace that had the CTO and co-founder of Solana and his tech group. And so I got I heard about what they were doing and that it blew my mind what they were going to achieve, and they've got it. The scalability problem that is challenging blockchain right now won't be an issue with Solana, and that's a pretty exciting challenge to have overcome.
Very exciting. So with that, Ed Wiley, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. I greatly appreciate you being here.
Yeah, Don, this has been really fun. Thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation.
Thanks.